We'll start this evening's meeting. I'll start just by congratulating members of the Parish Council on their election and welcoming Steve Bradbury as a councillor and Jackie Ladyman as our new clerk. I'd also congratulate Alison Andrew as our new city councillor. Alison has sent her apologies for this evening because she's attending mandatory councillor training at MKC, but she will come to future meetings. I'd also like to...
Is there an echo?
Yes, somebody's echoing.
Somebody hasn't got their sound muted on the PC, on their laptop. The guest.
Also, there tends to be streaming from.
Well, look, we're going to carry on. We'll do this, and it'll either be working or it won't. We're not going to be hostage to the technology.
Right.
Right, so I'd like to thank Kevin McDermott and Steve Montague for standing as candidates in the election. It's very important for local democracy that residents do put themselves forward if they feel they've got a contribution to make to the parish. And Kevin in particular came within 4 votes of actually being elected. Now, tonight's meeting, kind of acceptance of office declarations, chair and vice chair for the next year, and assign responsibilities to councillors. We then have to adopt our standing orders and policies, all of which will be on the parish website. I'll pause now and introduce the meeting itself just before we open forum, a few items on. So the first item on the agenda is receive apologies for absence. For the moment, we have Darren's apologies, but he will be here shortly as soon as his wife gets home and can look after the children. To receive acceptance, and here is Darren, to receive acceptance of office notifications, which I believe you have for us to sign. Do you want us to sign those? We've got to sign these in front of you, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we best do it now and that will be done. So, right, okay, so if you want to, shall I just pass these around and then they can pass it on?
They are, that's what your name is. That's it.
I don't know it.
Not your one.
So if you could sign those and pass them back, that would be good. Russell, while everyone's signing that, are we streaming? Streaming. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Right, they're all back to Jackie now. So the item number 3 is to elect a chairman. So can I ask if there are any nominations?
I'll second them.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, thank you very much for that. Do I have to sign a declaration? I do. Second item is to, or next item is to elect a vice chair. Yeah, I'm second that, yeah. So Russell, are you prepared to serve? Yeah. Good. You need to sign that one.
I've already done.
Yes, this is with item number 5 is to notify changes to the register of members' interest forms. Jackie, can you just tell us what that involves?
So yeah, this is these have been circulated prior to the meeting. So there's now been populated with each person's name. We need to adopt the code of conduct, and then these will be
Okay.
to that.
So we will sign these and give them back to you. But I mean, there's quite a lot of this information to
Yes.
fill in on these. It's all about
Whether we've got any-
interest in the parish. So I'll sit around, take it and pass it on. We'll come back and do that. Right, so the item number 6 now is to appoint committees and agree terms of reference. Now, this could be a very long and complicated process. So with your permission, I will try and short circuit this by saying that, well, first of all, by asking, does anyone wish to give up the responsibilities that they held last year? Okay. Steve, I think you've indicated that you'd be prepared to take on the responsibilities that John Keane has got or had.
Yeah, apart from it, I don't think I've had an awful lot of the bus group. And Russell does a very good job on that one.
I'm sorry, can you do that again?
I think John's got bus and transport.
Public
Plus he is the group. Oh no, it's Russell. Yeah, I'd be happy to take on John's responsibilities.
Yeah.
Go on, question.
Right, yes, indeed. Fine, so that covers items 6, 7 and 8.
Sorry, we're just I'm quite happy to actually join in each of the committees at 6 if you want. It doesn't matter that we've got 5 items.
No, that's
So
absolutely
I'm
fine.
too happy to join in.
Can anyone remember what the standing orders are for the sports committee? And indeed the village hall, so that we don't, because we co-opt people onto that, don't we?
We co-opt people from the youth groups, from the CSA, the sports ground.
It's the,
I'm not sure that there's I think there's a minimum, I'm not sure there's a maximum number of parish councils.
it's minimum of 3.
Minimum of 3 parish councils.
Yeah, okay, well, in that case, is everyone happy with that set of responsibilities?
Yes, do we need a chairman for the sport crowd?
Yeah, we'll get that when the meeting, when we have a meeting. We nominate the chairman after the election of officers.
Okay, you mean it?
So when we have a sports ground committee.
When you have a sports ground committee meeting,
we'll elect
yeah,
the chairman.
you elect your chair, yes, indeed.
Just one thing, 8, Rural West NAG is now the Rural West Community Forum.
Yes, if you'd like to change that.
Yeah,
please.
and I've been going to that, so I'll carry on going to that.
Okay,
And Chair, I'm quite happy to take up the vacancy at 8.4 if you like.
oh, thank you. That would be very much appreciated.
Even the whole house.
Yeah,
Fine, I've done it already.
okay, you got that,
Yeah.
Debbie? Very good. Okay, now moving on then to item 9, which is to adopt the standing orders. There are 2 changes to the standing orders, which one of which came up in a discussion with Democratic Services at the end of last year, which is to do with councillors' actions when they declare particular pecuniary interest. And when I first joined the council, it used to be that we had to leave the chamber, village hall. Then it seemed to change and we could just remove ourselves to the public gallery. And now it seems to change back again. We've been strongly recommended to amend, I think it's 12B and 12C in the standing orders. You say if we declare an interest, then we ought to leave this room. Now we can just go into the vestibule there. Dave always used to pop outside for a cigarette, not anymore. Or take a comfort break. That is strongly recommended to us that we do that, and so that is incorporated in the standing orders in front of you. The other one is that Steve did point out to me that the current standing orders have give the clerk discretion up to 250, but we both are fairly certain that was increased to £500.
Agreed.
And so the standing orders being changed now to reflect that standing order, that higher amount. This is the clerk's discretion, typically when things need to be done urgently. So with those changes, I'll propose that we adopt them. Do we need a seconder for it? We've got a seconder anyway. And all in favour? Yeah. Adopting the council's policies, I don't believe, the code of conduct. Now the code of conduct has changed, and we are recommended to adopt the Milton Keynes code of conduct, mainly because it is the monitoring officer at Milton Keynes Council who has to enforce any complaints that are made against us. Having looked through the code of conduct, the only one item that I personally think is superfluous, but councillors might not feel that, is that it does say that we commit to go to Milton Keynes Council Code of Conduct training. And I can see Ian is very excited about that.
Very excited.
I propose that we just strike that out, actually.
I've got a code, David, sorry.
I think it's I think we're sufficiently familiar with what we're doing. We've all been here. Most of us have done training of some sort or another, which would cover this, and I think it would be not a good use of time. But with that amendment, I would propose that we adopt the Milton Keynes Code of Conduct. I think we need a seconder, probably. It would be Steve, and all in favour. Unanimous. Thank you. The other policies, I don't believe there's any change, and I propose that we just adopt those as they currently are. Can I have a seconder, please? That's right. And all in favour, yeah. Well, so many people said there's a second. Unanimous anyway. Right. At this point, we suspend the meeting for the open forum. So, Stuart, I know you have come here especially for this. Would it be possible for you to just shuffle forward a bit and perhaps appear on A, because you'll then be able to be heard on the central microphone, and B, if Kate just swizzles her screen round towards you, residents will be able to see. So, Stuart.
Yeah, well, I'm here. Really, David should be here, but he can't be here tonight for some very good reasons. But we have. I've been aware that there's been some difficulty on the outfield and with the contractor Tove Landscapes. Basically, David can't speak to them directly. It has to go through Ian. And at this critical time of the year, with the grass growing as it is, and the weather that we're having, we just only by the skin of our teeth managed to get the ground ready for a match on Saturday. And I know it's a growing frustration for him, and as you know, David is a great servant of the club and spends many hours up there. And getting the outfield ready is crucially important for, well, we get reported every week on the state of not only the pitch, but the outfield. We get a report sent through to the South Northants Cricket League. And I was wondering whether there is any way where we need to get ahead of the game. That's the problem. We're behind. We're always behind. We need extra cuts. Unfortunately, I believe the mower, and I don't understand why the mower has gone away for servicing at this time of the year. It should have been done months ago.
Last autumn.
And so we don't even have that as a fallback, because very often in the past, Scott Pearson's gone up there. There's been other people to help out the situation, because I think we only get 12 cuts for as part of our package, which is not enough. for a start. I think we've got 13 matches, so we need another one there. But in addition to that, at this time of the year, because obviously the grass is growing so quickly, we all know from our own gardens how quickly it's growing. I wonder, is there any way that we can improve the liaison, particularly with David, being able to speak to Jordan, so that we can, you know, they're working from the same script, you know, and so really that's all I'm.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. Ian, would you like to respond to that?
Well, as Stuart just said, the mower should have been done. I've been on about it. We haven't had a sport meeting for 18 months. We need a chairman that's going to call a meeting, do a meeting, and do it correctly when it's needed, which is once every 4 times a year at least. So the mower didn't go away. I kept on about it, but I kept my mouth shut in the end because nobody listened. So the mower has unfortunately gone away. We've got to pay a big bill for it, which is not our fault as parish councillors. Didn't get it done correctly. David's been on to me, or David's been up to me, and tried to sort it out with Jordan. Now, obviously, with the weather we've had, it could be cut sometimes. Now, he's due to on his road, and I haven't got his road here with me. But I have got Jordan to do it 3 times already, and he's due again to do it this week. So, Jordan will not, if you could leave messages, do what you like. The only way I can get in touch when I know he opens my gate and I can walk out and see it. So if you can leave it with me, Stuart, I was going to give Dave a ring. I have Jordan's back tomorrow. So I can get in touch with Dave, let him know what the score is to see if we can get it done. Because on the agenda I've got it later, it's because of the situation with the mower, and we haven't got one as a standby we usually got, and Scott and Neil and go and stand in and do it, is we shouldn't be burdening the cricket club with the extra monies that are not really needed because we haven't got our own machine. So we've had to pay, or somebody's got to pay for the extra money. And I think the parish is down to the parish council because we haven't done our work.
Yeah, I think, Ian, that's drifting into the agenda item.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to make the point that Ian has got a resolution later in the meeting, but the mower did go away, I believe, to the supplier contractor last week, and it's coming back this week.
Hopefully coming back this week.
In the meantime, Jordan did say that he would actually mow the ground using his own mower, and the additional cost of actually putting on a trolley, bringing it over, unloading it, and that is something that we would bear. So really, in terms of the last mower, there has been no break, although the last mower hasn't been cutting properly because it needs repair, not servicing. So it's repairs, not service. Its cylinders need replacing, and it's not done a great job. And I mean, a bit of that is down to me that I lost it. Well, I lost sight of the time really, and other things happening. But it's always needed. The trees been replacing for some time, and that's being done at the moment. I think it's coming back this week. So in terms of the mower being late, there hasn't been a break because Jordan said he would do it. So he is cutting as per schedule with an arrangement that I made with him.
Okay. Can someone just remind me? I thought the arrangement with cricket, well, with the Sports Association, was that basically they had a contract to mow effectively the north of the footpath, and the parish council, which has just got the smaller areas south of the footpaths, you know, just around the pavilions and the exercise equipment, just sort of piggybacked on the back of that agreement. So that's fundamentally a CSA.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But for several reasons, the parish council actually paid Jordan, and then the cricket club and the football club contribute the cost of mowing the. Although I don't think we've seen anything from the cricket club in the last round. Okay. But they actually contribute the cost that it would have taken.
So in principle, there is no issue with David speaking directly to Jordan. There's just a practical problem of getting hold of him.
I mean, really, what David's asking for, I think, Stuart, is extra cuts. Because we cut to just to leisure standard, we
Well, that
leave
is,
the field in that. And any cuts beyond that are down to the sports clubs.
yeah,
Which is where they got the other use the mower to do it.
So that's where they need to make separate arrangements.
Yeah, there are two elements. Yes, we need the extra car, certainly. And it's the accessibility of David to Jordan. Because as you know, with the weather, we never know during the week. You normally got, I know he's got other places he's got to slot into his schedule. But David needs to say, look, we've got a match this week. We need, looking at the weather, can you do it either, early or slightly later or whatever it is? So, but whatever, it just needs that coordination, and he won't speak to David, as I understand it.
what Jordan won't speak to David.
Well, it's been an issue. I think, I mean, whether David said something, but at times I don't get on with what Jordan does, depends what it is. As I say, the only reason, all right, he uses my yard, but at the end of the day, I have been trying to get him and get him to understand he's got to answer people's calls. Full stop, or send a message. As simple as that. So I'll hopefully see him tomorrow. And then try and let David know, whatever, and they want it cut before the weekend because they've got another match.
We've got a match this Saturday, yes.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I
I
think
think here that we've got the mower, it's coming back this week. It should be.
If the gentleman,
Depends on the
got the
class.
role that he's whacking for and the two variants, he'd got everything else. He was going to take it away and strip it all down if he needed to, and then he can start rebuilding as far as he can get to the two variants and the bottom bar. If that comes, it should be back here Friday, Saturday.
okay, so I mean, what Steve has said is that Jordan's use of his own equipment has meant that although the service turned into a big repair job, which had to be organised, there hasn't been a break in availability. The breakdown has been in the communication between David and Jordan, and it sounds as if Ian's put his finger on the reason why. I think that's what we can do, and David will need to talk to Ian to interface to Jordan if he can't get hold of him directly.
Right, thank
Okay,
you for that.
can we let us know? Is there anything else?
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
I'm reading from Castlethorpe News, year 2000.
2000.
I'm a relatively new resident of Castlethorpe, but not a parish councillor. I'm a parish councillor in Cosgrove and have regularly attended Old Stratford Parish Council meetings as a member of the public. I've been attending CPC meetings since January and have been followed with interest of developments, disagreements. I feel that it's time that someone stood up and thanked the parish council for their hard work in this village. You only have to look around at this lovely village of Castlethorpe to see so many things here that other villages do not have. To name a few, we have ornate street lamps, stone bus shelter, well-kept pathways and communal areas. These things are due to the hard work and efforts of our parish council, especially Burton. Over the last 3 decades, Castlethorpe Parish Council has successfully allowed the village to grow in developments like Shefton Close, Willington End Road, Thrupp Close and Lodge Farm. Isn't it time that we, the villagers of Castlethorpe, accepted the fact that some development in Castlethorpe is necessary? Let's allow the parish council to get the right sort of development that will preserve the village as we know it, as they have successfully managed to do in the past. For those villagers who have other ideas, isn't it time you nominate a representative to serve on your parish council and know for yourselves how difficult and thankless task it is to try to please all members of the village community? Only basic Catholic close.
Thank you, Tony.
More than nothing but
I don't,
Nothing's changed.
who said nothing changes, everything changes. Anything else for the open forum? Oh, Kevin.
Sorry, I didn't think that when you mentioned footpaths, the footpath in front of
47 North Street.
no, South Street, opposite Paddock, but.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
A bit further up, there's parking all up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've reported that several times, but I know that Kay has got, wants to try and access some funding that Milton Keynes have announced, and hopefully Kay will move forward with that. Yeah, very good.
Exactly the same, but it's tree roots.
Yeah.
They've got underneath and they've lifted it, and I think for anybody who is disabled, in a wheelchair, crammed, anything like that, anyway, so yes.
Okay, anything else then? Right, let's move into the meeting itself. So if I just explain for anyone who's watching what we're going to be discussing this evening, so you can decide whether you're going to persevere or not. I should say that this is the annual meeting of the council, which is required by law, and you heard all the formalities we've just been through. It has a similar name to the annual parish meeting, which is also required to be held each year about this time, and which will be held here at the village hall next Monday at 7 p.m, not 7:30, 7 p.m. The annual parish meeting is not a council meeting, but a meeting for parishioners. The chair will give a report, and then this year any organisation which so wishes can also report. And residents can also speak on any topic that they feel is relevant to the parish. It will also be, and it's been advertised, as an opportunity to have a further update on the clubhouse. Moving to tonight's meeting, there'll be a clerk's report on various actions with specific further reports on meeting with the Milton Keynes Council planning gain officers and with Milton Keynes Council Highways. We've got 3 new planning applications to consider. However, the consultation period on these is 28 days. And because of the bank holidays, which means that this meeting is 2 weeks later than usual, for 2 of the applications, the consultation period has expired. When this happens, which it does occasionally, the clerk asks councillors if they wish to raise any objections, and if they do, the chairman then normally calls an extraordinary meeting to discuss it. In these cases, no objections were raised, so tonight we just have the one application to consider, which is a new agricultural building at Lodge Farmhouse, down by the business centre. There'll probably be some discussion about 2 previous planning applications, being the access route for static caravans to Cosgrove Park, which I know would like our ward councillor probably to pick up on, and the 4 additional houses in the old station yard. The resolutions tonight include, after a general update on it, a decision on one element of funding for the clubhouse, an additional grass cut in the village as a whole, arranging trainers for the defibrillators, considering double yellow lines at the entrance to Maltings Field, arrangements for grass cuts at the sports ground, as we've just been discussing, and arrangements for a fence and bench at the Chequers. There is a confidential part 2 in which further funding arrangements with the proposed clubhouse will be discussed, but as this is potentially giving financial information to bidders, it will be held it will not be held in public. It will be a private partner meeting. So that's on the agenda tonight. So if I move straight into the formal part of that, and declarations of interest by councillors and any of the agenda items.
Payment schedule.
Yeah, I'm payment schedule as well.
Oh, payment schedule.
Yeah, so that residents understand what's happening is in the course of the last month, particularly relating to the clubhouse, payments have had to be made with some urgency to Milton Keynes Council so that the planning application can be processed. And also to the place where you get the drawings for the block diagrams and so on. And basically, Steve, Darren and I personally funded that and are being reimbursed tonight, with therefore declaring an interest. Are there any other declarations of interest? Right. To approve the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any matters of urgency?
No.
Of accuracy,
I
rather?
wasn't there.
Yeah. Okay, in that case, do you want to propose, I need a seconder, which is Kay, and all in favour. So the minutes are accepted. So we now move on to the clerk's report. Now, I don't think we've had the clerk's report.
It's on the schedule.
Oh, it's up there now, right. Yeah. I can't see it. Where is it? Which one? Which one? Oh, 14 one, right, okay, thank you. Right, so I hope everyone else is being more effective than me on this.
Number one,
So number one,
I still got to pick the two doors up, but obviously with the wet at the cricket ground, I didn't want to go down with the motor to pick the two doors up, etc. I dried up and picked up at the end of the week.
okay. Item 2, does anyone want to speak on that? Steve, is that you?
Well, it's as described in the clerk's report, one of the floodlights is wobbling.
Yeah.
And it has been secured, thanks to Aubrey, I think, for that, Jackie.
Yeah,
Has been secured for the moment, but it does need, if they're to be used, it does need to be fixed. Otherwise, they need to be secured and mothballed. And as it says, the surveyor's reports required for the rest of them to see if they make sure they don't go the same way.
They will do. Some of them said they weren't putting the ground deep enough and solid enough. I said that at the time when I was done.
I mean, we don't know whether they just put the lights on top of the existing poles or whether they actually put the poles in themselves.
Well, let's,
They've got multi-lifting pole.
so you've got someone. Oh, Jack, you've got something.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
look at that. Okay.
So really, it's a matter of a financial decision versus making it safe and not using the decision.
they won't be winning, they're the sun will there because of the dark nights. We've got a bit of time, so if it's more of a safe, health and safety aspect.
Yeah, so they can at least be secured.
Yeah, well, when the lights were changed, they were a lot lighter, but when they got these new ones that were heavier, and obviously they weren't in the ground going up.
Okay,
And the pumps are on.
all right.
Okay.
Generally, any other items that councillors would like to raise? Okay.
Just on number 3, I'd just like to thank the people who have organised the litter pick. Very nice, thank you very much, that's it.
Okay.
On the litter pick, the meeting here on the 23rd of May. For the first 3. They would like anybody that would like to help to come along.
Right, okay. Thank you. Okay.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know about, who's Glendale? Is they taken over from RTM or what?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, this was reported at the last meeting. Basically RTM, am I allowed to say what they did with their price? I'm not, am I? They were non-competitive on price.
Yeah.
Very significantly. And I think although Darren and Steve both would have recommended making some allowance to them because they have been a good supplier, the amount of the uncompetitiveness was just too much. Yeah. So this has been chosen with Hanslope are going the same way, are they?
No.
They're not.
No, they're going to.
I'm sorry, they're going.
They go. Cool.
Right, okay.
The entire village.
Well, that's a stupid thing that is that they're so pleased to lay the sports ground up there. But the thing is, that bill they pay him is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a decision mainly on cost. That's Phil right says we would have liked to continue with RTM, and if there was a small difference to cost, then I'm sure that would have been our recommendation, but it was a big cost difference.
Obviously,
and Glendale were cheap.
What I would say to those councillors responsible for landscaping is that You and.
I'm in on this because I've been waiting for RTM to come and look at the trees around the village. Walton Road, I all want trimming. Getting close trees, I'm looking at.
Well, wait a minute, John.
Steve went to that.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost here now. The concern that I've got, as I wrote to Stephen and Jackie, is that we will have to watch RTM very carefully during this year. I really struggle to believe that the interval, I see it was cut today, but I really struggled that the interval from the last cut was according to schedule.
It should have been cut last week.
Yeah.
According to the schedule, it should have been cut last week.
Yeah, and it really, as Stuart said, you know, with all of our lawns, it was the village grass cutting has got really did get a bit out of hand.
Yeah.
So we will have to watch them very carefully, Jackie, I think.
But what we've got to watch now, because the grass is so long, it'll leave for the net. So we've got to say where they go.
Yeah. Now, as far as trees are concerned, Ian, RTM do hedges, they don't do trees. That's not part of the scope of contract. That remains with Milton Keynes Council.
So we
above.
planted the trees at Walton Road. As you go Walton Road, we planted all those trees. I went and dug the holes for them.
Well, I can only tell you, I mean, be quite clear here, because we've had a discussion at Parish Council about the scope of the procurement that we've done with the landscape contractor, and trees are excluded. And frankly, whoever planted them, and there's history associated with all of these things, of course, but if it's on public land, Milton Keynes are responsible for maintaining them, not us. Okay, so by public land, I mean on the Milton Keynes land. Yeah. We're responsible for the trees, some of the trees in Castle Field, for example, because that's our responsibility.
What about Shepperton Close then?
Shepperton Close is
That'd be highway, wouldn't it?
yeah, it'd be highways but it's Milton Keynes Council for sure, it's not us. It's not our land.
I'm going to arrange a meeting for that, please.
Right. Anything else on the
Item 8, the SIDS. It was confirmed at the community forum with our PCSO, David Huckle, that he and PCSOs will now be allowed to use police speed gun.
yes.
And he's going to start doing that as soon as possible.
Yeah, so this is, you know, really a message for residents and anyone else driving through the village. That PCSOs can use the speed guns, and he will use his good officers with actual police officers, in particular, Guillaume Ouliette, who was the special who was doing speed enforcement in the village, to bring them in so that fixed penalty notices can be issued for the vehicles that are, or the drivers who are speeding. Okay.
Item 14, that's stone water, not.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks a mess at the moment. It absolutely does. At the end of the water, where it drains, is totally full. So I don't know whose responsibility that is.
Well, it's stone water, and or more particularly, it probably has been handed over to their management company. But at the end of the day, they are responsible. And I did see that Steve has written again to our planning officer, Joe Powell, to say, you know, can we get some enforcement on this, because it's meant to have been laid out properly.
But they've actually flopped off the culvert's blocked, and always has been blocked at the bottom of Carrington Road, and it has actually flooded over the top.
Yeah.
And the planning say it's an environmental health issue.
It was a planning issue before we started.
I'm sure it has to be signed off as a planning issue, but they've not completed the work properly, and they've left the culvert blocked. The culvert in the swale is blocked, so the water rests in the swale. But that does actually drain away. That culvert down at the bottom of Carrington Road.
Yeah, and I can see, but there is Milton Keynes Council is also the local lead flood authority, and they have got an officer to whom we can complain, or report, more to the point, when there is a risk of flooding. So, I mean, that's actually where it should go. If you would be so kind, Steve, as you carry on with your campaign on that and try and get it dealt with.
The green area looks a total mess. They've just left there. Is that stone waters or is that?
Yeah.
Okay, they need to do something about it.
I mean, they have a landscape plan, and this was the other point I made to Milton Keynes Council planning, something that they haven't done, but they were obliged to do so as part of the development. And again, it's just surely they should check these things before they sign up the development.
I'm very shocked
And
that
it's-
stone water is shirking their
Yeah,
responsibilities.
it's best to be late to foreseen. The areas around it, and it hasn't been.
Okay, look, we must start moving.
The other thing on the water, they were going to put levelling tanks in until it flowed over and went into the culvert. Did they put the levelling tanks in the end?
Well, you can only tell that those tanks were going at the railway end of the culvert. And I don't know whether they went in. There were some very big structures going in there, big concrete structures, which is, I assume that's what it was. But I mean, I think you have to leave it with Steve if he can kindly progress this. Because he's got this between his teeth.
I don't know anything about, I don't know what levelling tanks are.
They've got great big tanks, and the stuff flows into it, and
It goes into one, goes into another, and it comes to a certain level, and it would be excess runs over into you.
yeah. We can talk to you about it outside.
Item 12, the coronation coins and the coronation events. I just would like to, on behalf of the parish council, thank everybody that volunteered and what a great success it was.
Yeah, I think a particular thanks
And particularly to Polly Mickey,
who organised the very successful event that we had. Right, can we okay on this now?
But just on the round saying, I mean, it's so going to Hanslow Park about the Hanslow Parish and Castle getting together. Wondering if they have councillors there, if you've got any, but you think we can get some money out of Hanslow Park?
Well, as you can see, it's been raised, yeah. Okay, let's move on then. There's the ward councillors. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Board Council today. Firstly, I'd like to echo the sentiment of Chad in his opening address to this meeting. Congratulations, everyone, for being elected on the Castlethorpe Parish Council. Look forward to working with you all, and welcome to Jackie, the new chair. That's
promotion too far then.
Thank you.
In terms of council, there's not much going on at the moment. We have full council on Wednesday. That's the formal mayor making where Amanda Marlowe steps down as mayor and will be most likely replaced by Mick Clegg, who's been deputy for last year. And of course, a new deputy will be elected. I hope that they're going to step up to be the mayor the next year afterwards. You've already gone over the election stuff. And Councillor Andrews, unfortunately, unable to be here tonight, and because of the clash with Parish Council, able to stay for the whole time meeting. If there's anything you'd like to raise with me, please feel free to do so. If you can't raise it with me in this meeting, but let it go, drop me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
The one thing that I'm aware of, I have written to you all on, which is the existence and enforcement of construction traffic management plans. Basically determining where traffic goes when the construction is underway. And this was particularly because of the use of Fox Covert Lane for park homes being delivered to Cosgrove Park, where we asked that was not part of the well, the construction plan prohibited traffic going down that road, not least because there's a 5-ton weight limit on the bridge. And we got a response.
Did in fact fill the applicant's own transport plan.
Yeah. And Milton Keynes Council just said that this was in conflict with MPPF and was unenforceable. And I just found that just quite ridiculous. I mean, and I would appreciate it if ward councillors could find out what the status of these is, because it really is, although this is just a relatively small one for us. I mean, if you can't enforce construction traffic management plans, it will cause absolute chaos to any residents who happen to be near a development site. I mean, complete chaos. Anyway, if I can leave that one with you. Has anybody else got anything for Chris? Because we will have to make a move down slow shortly. Well, thank you very much, Chris. So there are two meeting notes, one on a planning game meeting that Jackie, Steve and I had with James Williamson and Sharon Price. And basically the outcome of that was that they felt that the use of the S106 funds for the clubhouse was appropriate. And they didn't explicitly say it, but it was fairly heavily inferred that they would be making that recommendation once the application was received by them. And they also made a few other comments which I covered in the report. There's some other money there which can be used for the shop. I mean, there's speaking slightly out of turn. But from shop hat on, there is a need for some additional space there, and there's a village amenities, which a bit of fund within the S106, which they confirmed could be used for that. But I think that was it. There was one or two smaller items in there as well, but yes, the money could be used for preschool, the pre-education amount, the early years education amount could be used for the preschool startup, so long as after the first year, the preschool would be sustainable. That's the main thing. And also there was some funding that would be available to youth up, which I know Kay had queried for obvious reasons. Right, highways. There's a meeting on highways. I personally found it, reading the notes, quite unsatisfactory, and on a whole series of reasons. And I have written what I've put in your folders, a pre-complaint. It's got 5 items in there, ranging from the street lights, which I think almost stunned me into silence with the incompetence of Milton Keynes Council on this. I just almost cannot explain what they've done on Station Road. Through to lack of responsiveness from the head of highways, through to actually even down to the street naming in Carrington Grove. I mean, it's just, there's 5 items in there. So I mentioned this. I happened to be in a meeting with Kay Pettit, who is the parish liaison officer. And as it happens, also Sue Smith, who's the chair of Woughton and a ward councillor, particularly about parish councils being able to undertake minor works on the public highway. And I may ask Chris, for ward councillors to get into what you might regard as an unholy alliance with 1 or 2 Labour ward councillors who feel very strongly about this. Because just as, we got quoted stupid sums like £1,000 to put a post in the ground. So Woughton were quoted stupid sums to put up a fence, 4 times the amount they were quoted by the private contractor. And so they're quite keen to see this change when the new outsourcing contract starts. And I found the response from the head of highways almost incoherent. I mean, it was just wrong. Anyhow, so I mentioned this to them in the basis that I would then seek a meeting with the cabinet member, who's Lauren Townsend, who I know reasonably well, and put a pre-complaint into her. Graham Cox tried ringing me on Friday, but unfortunately, it's just as I was leaving the house. I tried returning his call today, but of course, it should have nothing back. So anyway, there you go. I don't know if anyone has read the papers. I have. I mean, I'm just and would like to comment.
In personally, so I think they were a bit light on them.
I was a bit light on that.
No, I think that's spot on, Phil. It's just, it's just comedy, isn't it?
What's happened, Kate? You've just lost.
Steve's lost battery, and mine seems to have just decided to turn itself off. So just ignore us.
Okay. Well, the
I'll give you
This one here.
the charge.
Well,
Is it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
there's one. Is definitely on.
Yes, but if you're plugging all them into that,
That's on.
if you're plugging all that into that round thing, is the cable completely pulled out? Because that'll get hot down fire.
Is that all enough?
Not with computers.
Eh?
There's not enough current.
Sorry, I've seen it at many a show. People got things plugged in, charging their phone,
okay.
and they've got a smoke.
All right. Well, you know where the fire exit is. Let's move on to section 15, which is new planning applications. There is only one for us to consider, which is 15.2, because the other two we make no objection to, which is the erection of new agricultural buildings. Does anyone have any objection to this?
It seems to match the existing building.
Okay, so there's no objection on this. I will just make a side comment on a decision that Jackie circulated this afternoon, which I thought was an absolutely appalling decision, which was that a new building down at the business centre was refused. Did you all see that? And it was refused on the first reason was there was a lack of sustainable transport. Well, whose fault is that we haven't got a better bus service? You know, not Philip Sawbridge's.
The out of town business park.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. But the thing that I'm particularly cross about, and I might give Philip a call about this, our neighbourhood plan specifically said that there was to be a permissive approach to planning applications at both Lodge Farm Business Centre and at forgotten what Luke calls this now. Home Farm. Simply to encourage or to help farmers diversify. I got this through almost at the same time I was watching an edition of Clarkson's Farm. And honest, it was almost exactly the same. Anyway, there we go.
This same thing happened with the swimming pool as well.
Yeah, well, they got it eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Anyway, no comments on 15.2 and 15.1 and 15.3 have passed. Right. Feedback on previous planning applications. We talked about 16.1, which was the static homes. And the only other one I wanted to comment on was the 16.9, which is the 4 residential properties down in Old Station Yard, which I don't know if any of you read the reports, but the environmental people absolutely hammered Simon on water, surface water disposal. and saying that, you know, there's completely inadequate provision for that. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with that anyway. Anything else that anyone wants to raise on 16?
I just hope he's not using the house historic tunnel where he put the other ones over. I haven't been over there, have a look yet.
Right, let's move on to section 17, resolutions. We need a public excluded part 2, which I proposed to discuss some new financial arrangements from the clubhouse. Unanimous. Right, to progress, consider progress and funding of the clubhouse. Now, some of this which is in part 1, and I'll just pull this up. Now, I did make some amendments earlier today to this. Cheerio, Chris. Thank you very much for coming. See you next month. Yeah, they are. That's right. So the first point is that for quite practical reasons, we will have to split the clubhouse into 2 phases. The first being to actually get the building done, and then the second is to fit out the clubhouse part of it. As I go through this, you'll see why that is the case. On the build phase, the planning application has been submitted and has now been validated. And for anyone watching who wants to look it up, its number is, you've got your pencils handy, 23/00976 FUL. So basically, it's 976 is the number you've got to remember. And I would like to thank Darren Merritt and Dan McGee for their work in basically getting the drawings in. I know Russell also had to go at putting some of the boundary. There were some really quite precise submissions had to be done on the colour of lines and exactly where the boundaries were drawn. Anyway, it was all very frustrating, but it's in. It is hoped that an ITT can be issued at our next parish council meeting, which is only in just over 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time. Luke Jeffries, who's the project manager on this, expects to have an ITT available for them. And we would hope, there's some issues that Steve wants to discuss at the next project board, but we would hope that it can be issued to any builder who expresses an interest. But proactively, we would send it to any local firms who are capable of doing that and have got a known track record. We will consider potential contractors in part 2. We'd like to get the return of tenders for the 28th of June so that a contractor can be selected at the parish council meeting either on the 3rd of July, but we won't actually have a planning decision by then, or the 10th of July, or after the 10th of July, which is actually the date now for the for planning to have made a decision. The build phase will require the full completion of the changing room area and access in some form, perhaps through the existing rear entrance, to the non-player toilets, which will now be at the back of the pavilion. So that the existing pavilion will be, in use at the beginning of next season. It will have the changing rooms at the front and the public toilets at the back. Okay, so you have that. What may not happen, in fact, I think now, given the way that time has slipped through this project, I don't think the clubhouse, although the construction should be finished round about that time, I don't think it will be fitted out in time for the start of the 2024 season. And I saw that David, as you know, Stuart, has written making suggestions as to alternatives in a very constructive way. Okay.
I think I mentioned it last time, but resident mentioned that they brought up about the entrance should be facing literally opposite to Thrupp Close.
Yeah, it is.
And it is now, is it? And so
Yeah.
because before it was going So clubhouses like that, it was going that way onto the sports field.
It's heading, is facing away.
Is it facing the tennis courts
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Sorry, what's it facing the tennis court?
The entrance.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's
yes,
fine. Just checking, thank you.
But
Yeah, so-
you'll have windows down the side looking out towards the cricket pitch, won't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing two people have said to me, and Dave Neville was one, are they cricket club happy? Have they been discussing these things over the plan? What do you think of your putting in there? And the way you can redesign
Oh,
it?
the answer is absolutely yes. And David actually sits on the project board. I mean, he hasn't been in a couple of the last ones because once the plans have been finalised, a lot of what we've been doing is actually doing the site plans and block plans rather than the detail. But David has been very fully involved in
And
that.
have you considered, I'll say it again, and perhaps have you consulted enough people that the bar and cooking area will be sufficient or done the right, correct manner?
Yeah, I believe that we have. I mean, Lawrence Chapman has led on this and he's had quite a lot of input. We've also had input from, I think, two other individuals with relevant experience who fed in and are very happy with it. But to be clear, that design is not finalised at this stage, and it's one of the reasons why we have to split the fit out from the actual building itself. So what I hope will be the case by the 31st of March is that the existing pavilion will have been completely converted and ready for use, and that the shell of the, which is to say the walls and roof of the clubhouse extension will have been constructed either by the 31st of March or fairly soon after, and it will then have to be fitted out. Now, funding, funding, I've already mentioned meeting with MKCC on the S106 money. Now, this is really a decision that I would like us to make now, is that we always knew that there was going to be additional money that was going to be needed. And it is proposed that the £50,000 bond that we currently have for the sports ground maintenance, which has actually generated almost zero income over the past few years, that we use that as part of the capital to avoid effectively borrowing our own money, because that's what it will be. We'll be getting income from that, and then we'd have to borrow from somewhere else. So that is a decision which I would like us to make as soon as I finished giving this summary. And then there are other bits of money that we will need, but we'll talk about that primarily in part two. But certainly we felt that the use of that bond should be a part one matter. The fit out phase, as I said, that's still being finalised. Lawrence has got a contractor who's doing some drawings for us, and we should have that relatively soon. It's likely that a single contract will be let for the bar and kitchen area, plus the clubhouse lounge, that the last could potentially be a separate supply. The parish poll should be in progress. I was looking in my letterbox this morning, actually, because Milton Keynes Council were actually posting this out directly from the printers. When it didn't arrive, I rang Democratic Services this afternoon, and they're chasing up the printers, but it should be with us imminently. The return date is the 2nd of June, so that is still quite a while away. There's a mistake in your note when it says it will be distributed by the 12th of June. It means the 12th of May, of course. It should have been done last week by volunteers, but because of the elections, MKCC were delayed a bit. So that's where we are. Would anyone like to ask any questions on that? And there'll be a bigger opportunity next week if we want to, if residents want to come along and hear about that.
Well, are you on about money still?
Right, so shall we now move to the money? So, you know, I think those of us who are on the project board are proposing that we use that £50,000 bond because it's money that's effectively been dead for the last few years. And we could use that capital very efficiently if it were deployed as part of this build. Anyone like to speak on this?
I disagree. Disagree totally. That was there for a reason, for a real emergency, whenever it happened, not to do something like this. I was there at the beginning doing all this when we took over the allotments, etc., and done all this. That was put aside for total emergency.
Well,
Always has been, as far as I've sat on this parish council since it started on it.
I mean, I would. No, I won't. Let's hear other views. Steve.
I was of the opinion that it was there to actually generate interest and pay the cost of running a sports ground.
Yes.
That's always been my recollection, but I might be wrong.
But it's obviously, I think it's a bit silly to be getting about 0.5% interest on that and then having to borrow it. But, 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
That's totally stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to disagree with you.
Yeah. Well, you weren't there at the beginning when it started, were you?
No, I wasn't.
I'm along the lines of what Steve said. My understanding of that £50,000 bond was it was there to contribute to the running of the sports ground. I'm not sure what constitutes an emergency where that money could be used. My thoughts are that yes, for this project, this is probably not ideal for the money to be used, but on the proviso that my concern would be that is the amount of money that we might end up borrowing. I've got great concerns about that in terms of this project. Because currently I don't want to see parish council and village being in debt. But that's not here there. This is, I'm just talking about what
we can talk about numbers in part 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because
no, so actually off the back of that, I understand where it's come from, and there's a lot of history behind this money, but I don't know what constitutes an emergency as to when that money would ever be used. And looking at it, if we're talking about borrowing money, we've got £50,000 sitting in a bond doing nothing, then to me it makes sense to use £50,000 that we've got.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No.
Okay. All right. I think we ought to formally record a vote on this. So I will propose that the £50,000 bond is used for the construction of the clubhouse. Should it go ahead, of course. I mean, we still do need both the pole and various other things to make sure that it's all viable. But on that basis, I'd like to propose that it's a financial matter, so I think it needs a seconder. So could I have a...
So before we go, can I just clarify something?
Yes.
We're talking about that we're not actually, if we vote that we're going to use that money towards the clubhouse, we're not going to go ahead and just close the bond straight away, are we?
No.
That will only be closed and the money used when we've agreed that the clubhouse is going.
Yeah, I would think probably we wouldn't do that until we have accepted a contract bid, which will probably be, if everything goes well, in July. But once we are contractually committed to a builder, then I think we then ought to put in training, making sure we have that money, just as we'll make sure we draw down the S106 and so on. Okay, so you're seconding, so I now need to take a vote. So and against is in.
I'm against repairs.
By majority. Right, let's move on then to 11.3, which is an additional grass cut on the cutting schedule. Steve?
Effectively, we went forward. We're running the rest of the year with RTM, and I think that they put 9 cuts into the schedule. Thank you very much. But the one thing, my reconditioned laptop that doesn't seem to be working well is the battery, and it's gone. So essentially, it's quite obvious at the moment that we should be cutting the grass every 2 weeks. So I was going to ask for a resolution to arrange further grass cuts to actually make the intervals 2 weeks between cuts. But of course, that's been kind of compounded by the fact that they should have cut it last week rather than this week. So we've got a lot of the verges that are in the right mess, and as Ian said, they're at a length where they won't cut very well at the moment. But I mean, I think it's certain we need to actually reduce the frequency to 2 weeks for the next few weeks.
I mean, I'm not sure if I probably am misremembering, but I've just, Jackie's just shown me where the fact that the grass cutting schedule has been put up on it in our docket. That should have been the 4th cut this year. Yeah,
That's the second.
and it's the second.
Should it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, there should have been one. The schedule as it reads, well, of course, it depends what you mean by this year, because the first one was 27th of March, which is technically last year.
Yeah.
But it's the 27th of March, the 17th of April, the 8th of May, and the 22nd of May.
We haven't had
Oh, sorry, 20, yeah, all right. So
Yeah.
third one, yeah.
We haven't had them all.
Okay. Do you want to give me an action to resolve that with?
Yeah.
Because obviously if we have actually contracted with them to do a specific number of cuts.
Yeah.
So, but, and the other thing is that on the schedule, they've got the hedge cutting in August, which is still in nesting season. I think nesting season finishes the end of August.
Ian, can you advise us on that?
End of August.
And August.
Yeah.
So that will need to go back in September as well. So I need to talk to them about that.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, Kay Pettit was very apologetic about this fact that the landscaping has slipped. It's really because it's part of this huge procurement that Hopkins are doing, which includes everything from the new waste bins to all sorts of stuff.
But rather than to extend it by half the year,
Yeah, I know.
really has confused everything. They
Yeah.
should have extended it by the whole year.
I mean, we should have, I mean, really what needed to have happened is that we made a decision. And, you know, the beginning of in that April, the new contractor took over.
That's right.
Because otherwise we're going to have a difficult year, I can tell you. You know, they're just going to really drag their feet.
Now or something, yes.
Yeah.
But if I take the action, if the resolution is to arrange further grass cut if necessary.
Yeah, well, I think we're owed one. I mean, I think they did one the 27th of March, fair dues. I don't think they did one the 17th.
We've had two cuts up Bullington End Road.
One today.
Including today's.
I've done, I don't want to, I've been there today.
Anyway, I think Steve, yeah, anyway, you've got that. So the resolution is to have an additional grass cut, which I'm happy to support on the basis that we aren't owed one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those in favour? Yeah, okay. 11.4 it's down for me, but actually it's really Darren.
Yes. So I need to, well, it's been a bit crazy, everything, but going back, so I've got diary event set in works. Speak to DFIP Safe tomorrow. Speak about the pads, get everything sorted. Once we've got the new pads, then I feel then it can be a good place to move ahead with everything. I would appreciate we can at least speak with Richard and get the planning, the training in place.
Yeah.
Also, it's a case of we need to do some remediation work on what we've got at the moment, get them up and running fully, and then we'll be in a good spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, for those of you watching, what this is about is some basic training on the defibrillators. If I can just make the point, having actually done this training, the training and the maintaining are two quite separate items. Because for the training, they won't use those.
No,
they have a special dummy that they bring in to use. So I think you can just arrange the training whenever's convenient.
So
Yes.
I know that they did offer free training as well. I never.
Well,
there's some charge.
As I read it, they asked for a donation of £250. So I think the resolution is that we make I mean, apart from you arranging it,
Yeah.
that we approve a donation of £250. So would you like to propose that?
Yeah.
And we need a seconder then, which is Steve, and then all in favour. Are you okay with that, Ian?
Yeah.
Yep, great. So that's unanimous. Right, 11.5 is to consider the painting of double yellow lines on the entrance to Maltings Field. Okay.
I think there is a real problem here, and I know that it always comes up on bin day that somebody's parked near the junction. But the point is, if there was a house on fire down there, you would not be able to get a fire engine down there most of the time. And I've been checking it. People park very close to that junction, and it's supposed to be 10 metres from a junction, and that's what they say on the council website. And it's more of a sort of, it's very inconvenient for the residents when their rubbish hasn't been able to be picked up, and they have to go, and then Milton Keynes Council have to go back with a smaller lorry. But actually, there could be a time when there are lives at risk, and I do feel that we should be doing something about that. There are people who park right in the corner, right next to it, and I've taken a couple of photographs. I put one on, I sent one round. There's no way a fire truck or an ambulance would be able to get through that gap. And so, do we just leave it and say, well, you know, it's inconvenient, but actually, I think we should do something.
Yeah.
Quite agree. Totally agree. There are places, not just Maltings Field, there's 2 or 3 places around the village that need doing. But my problem with that case is who's going to police it? Because you ain't going to ring the police up and ask them to come out because double yellow line, not double yellow. How far back?
But I think it's more of a deterrent. If you put little white lines there, okay, people don't tend to park permanently for on a double yellow line. They will park where there is don't park because there's a white line, like you know
the top of the road.
Yeah, like top of New Road. Okay, they will park on that bit, but that's not double yellow lines. They wouldn't get. I think double yellow lines might act as a deterrent. That's what I'm hoping, that people won't be stupid enough to park on double yellow lines. And we could take pictures of cars, put on double yellow lines, and send them in. I mean, we could quite happily do that.
Will King's Council allow us to put double yellow line back?
Oh no, we can't do that. And actually,
No, it needs to be
let me. Does anyone else wish to speak prior?
Don't get around me.
All right. The way this would work is, first of all, Milton Keynes Council would have to produce a road traffic order to put double yellow lines there. And just to tell you, these road traffic orders are actually quite expensive. And because we've asked for things around the village before now, and they've just said, you know, we're not, you know.
Sorry.
Yeah. So there's costs which Milton Keynes Council will either not want to incur or will ask us to pay for. And we are asking probably about 3 to 5 grand is the sort of cost of those things. They are quite expensive. Secondly, is the point of enforcement. The police do not have powers unless there's actually an obstruction. They do not have powers to enforce yellow line parking. So that is given to one of Milton Keynes contractors. I'm not sure who it is actually, whether it's Serco or one of that lot. But anyway, one of them do the traffic wardening in Milton Keynes Council, and they would have to do that. And that means they would have to come out here effectively on the off chance that they get they're able to issue some fines, which I personally think is unlikely. The next thing is, I think we do, you know, I looked at the photographs, Kay, that you sent, and I can see that the road itself is quite narrow, but they would mount the curb and they go on the verge on the other side if it was necessary. to get round those vehicles.
You would not get a
And-
fire engine down
No.
those roads when there are cars parked at the top
Yeah,
of that road.
I mean-
promise you.
No chance.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, some of these fire appliances, I mean, I have had this discussion in the past. And apparently a lot of these fire appliances are not as, they're actually smaller than the waste lorry, actually. Because I complained about fire and I thought, no, it's the waste lorries which are bigger. So it's that. And the other bit is, the problem in South Street is there just aren't enough parking spaces. I
Then
mean,
we've got the
you know,
wheels.
we've created parking spaces or a couple of extra spaces in front of the nursery.
But they'll
You know,
park
where-
there rather than park round the corner on South Street. There is quite often cars parked at the top of that, on that junction, when there are spaces further up. And it's just that they, you know, oh, I'll just park here because it's convenient and it's near to my house and stuff, which everybody does, don't get me wrong, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But I do feel that parking on a junction shouldn't be, I think it's
Well,
to the detriment of the people who live in Walthamstow.
But who's parking there? Oh, the residents.
Yeah, the residents, so,
So they're to be detrimental to themselves.
yes.
Nice,
Yeah.
South Street reference, the detrimental towards the.
That's
Yeah.
more
I
like.
have also asked,
They have driveways.
Yeah.
Down there, most of them.
I have asked Dave Huckle, because they can enforce if there's obstruction. To patrol, particularly on Friday mornings, and to put, you know, a sticker or something on the cars, which previous PCSOs have done when people have parked inconsiderately. But I would agree that would only affect the Friday morning parking rather than being sort of 7/24. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know where people would park if they don't go on, but they go.
Could I suggest as a first step that maybe we get in touch with the fire service, see what they think?
Yeah.
The situation would be if a car was parked there when a fire engine needed to go down.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And if they say they wouldn't be able to get down, then it's clearly a dangerous situation.
Yeah, it is, yeah. They might say they'll just push the car out of the way,
Yeah.
which I believe, which I think they would. It's like,
It takes 5 minutes to push a car out of the way, and that's another 5 minutes to burn the building. for
I
somebody
think they
else
use,
to do it.
I think,
I don't think that,
well,
I don't think that's an excuse personally. They
I think-
should not be parking there, it's 10 metres away from the junction, that's when that's
Well,
when it's supposed to park.
yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion, for example, on the entrance on Bullington End Road, on the entrance to Front Close. And the response is that the highway code is advisory, not mandatory, so they cannot enforce the highway code. in that
There is a
sense.
pavement on the
Yeah.
other side on Strat Close,
Yeah.
like you said, they could mount that pavement, there isn't a pavement on the
No,
other
no,
side.
it was for a different reason. It was to do with vehicles being unsighted when they left Front Close.
It would be interesting to know
But anyway.
if there's anybody from Maltinsfield watching, what they think about it. It'd be really nice to know what they
Yeah.
feel should happen.
Well, I mean, I think Russell's suggestion
Yeah.
is very sensible. If we can try and contact the fire officers and see if they would be prepared to give advice.
They're all living up to junction 14 now, aren't they? They're that way.
Of course,
Yeah.
problem will be solved.
Well, there's still the Newport Packet.
Um,
There's still the Newport Packet. Yeah, anyway.
Not so much lovely.
That's strip around was through.
All right, well, can we agree that's the course of action? The next step will be to contact the fire service and see what they would have to say. Good. 11.6, sorry, 17.6. Further cuts of the cricket outfield. Have we discussed this now?
I think we've just discussed it, leave it with me, and I'll get in touch with Jordan tomorrow, hopefully, in that sector.
Yeah.
The main reason that was put on there, and Dave agreed with me when I spoke to him about it, is the fact that we'll have to pay any extra ground. Because we haven't got the mower there that stands in between Jordans.
No, hang on. What we have said is that we would pay for the extra cost involved in Jordan cutting with his own machinery.
that's right.
Yeah, not that we will pay for the extra cuts above the 12 that we contract, or that we say we do as a leisure facility.
That's what was in something last meeting.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say is, because we haven't got the mower there, they could have used it twice. It's not there, it should have been done in the winter time. So therefore, why should the cricket club be burdened with that extra cost?
Well, the point is they would have paid for a cut on the mower there. I mean, this is, I mean, I didn't really follow this particularly, except I turned up for the sports committee meeting when the quotes were considered. So I'm not quite familiar with all of the background, but as I understand it, basically it goes out to service at the end of the season, but this time there were problems with it. And we had quite a lot of difficulty getting quotes to replace all the rollers and things, and it ended up being very late whenever it was a couple of months ago when we looked at the quotes we had in and selected someone to do the repair. That's my memory. And
But if it is back this week, then what's been has been, and.
So therefore, the cricket club got to pay for 2 extra mowings.
well, you're talking about extra cuts from this point forward, aren't you?
No, from what's been happened the last fortnight. John's done it 3 times. Is that not correct, John?
I can't.
Well, David's done it 3 times already done.
Well, I think
One was 3 times, one is Jordan, and I think it's due again before this weekend. And there's 2 cuts in hand, so it's entirely up to you. I mean, spending £250 here and there, and then the cricket club got to pay an extra 2 mowings because they haven't got the mower to stand in between. That's the idea of the machine.
I thought that you said Jordan was going to use his own machine to do the mowing.
He's had to go up there and use his own mower.
Right, yeah.
So he's done it 3 times, 4th time due this week. But 2 of those were because the cricket club needed a grass cut to get a match on. I believe you cancelled one match because it wasn't cut, wasn't you?
No, that's well done. There was a match cancelled.
Match cancelled, right.
But,
I think I really need Steve to.
yeah, I mean, I don't understand that there has been a mower continuously, and as far as I'm aware, the mower was picked up last week.
And it wasn't usable before then. It wasn't usable. It wasn't cutting. That's the idea of getting it done. One was cutting here, one was cutting there, and one was cutting like that. Couldn't use it. That's why Jordan had to go and do it.
Well, shall we wait and see until we get Jordan's invoices, and then we'll work out from that, you know, who pays for what? And we'll do that on the next meeting.
Because that's the past.
Yeah.
What you're saying is really going forward, it is quite clear the mower will be back.
If the mower comes back this week, then the problem goes away. But we commissioned Jordan to do the cut to recreational levels, as I said before.
Yes, it's 12 cuts a year, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then any in between, the lower, our cricket club mower, or our mower would be there, the cricket club to go in to do anything.
Well, let's carry it forward, and let's wait till we get these invoices.
I'm not sure. Yeah, let's do as the details. I think we'll.
So if you
we'll
said
defer
that,
that. I must say, I'm not comfortable just saying, well, we just go and pay for it all at this stage, but let's discuss it when the invoices come in. A fence and bench to be installed at the
Well,
checkers.
the bench is up the farm. The day to put at the top of the checkers. Correct, or the sport ground.
Yeah.
We were going to take a piece of chain link concrete post out to make it look smart and set the bench in to the ground, correct?
Yeah.
Right, so I would like it, if possible, I can meet with you, David, with Mark Lever to get a quote.
So this is for the,
Top of checkers,
yeah,
before you go into the sport ground, you've got the gate there.
yeah,
There you've got the old piece of chain link that they're pulling about and concrete post that needs renewing. If we put the seat in there and put the fence around.
okay, well. Yeah,
Is that all right for you, Dave?
Yeah,
That's what you wanted, isn't it?
I'll meet you anytime. Just,
Yeah.
pick a time and a place, well, no other place, just pick a time.
I mean, so basically,
Who's that?
the seat is going next to the lamppost at the end of the checkers there. And you're going to amend the line of the fence to go around the back.
See what Michael Lee was got to say with his there.
I have to say that, I mean, I know residents have asked for it. I do find it an odd place, but anyway, there we go.
I think.
We've made that resolution. Yeah, we approved it, yeah. Anyway, there we go. Fair enough, right, payment schedule then, we got the payment schedule.
Do we now need to leave?
Right, so, oh, yeah.
A moment of glory.
Oh, it is. This is a bit much, this is a peculiar. Can we even now? Actually, he did say, he said, I know you're village hall, you can go in the kitchen if you want.
I'm not approving that.
We are just about 4, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think Ian needs to leave as well, he's on there. With Ian, Phil,
Yeah, I'm sorry, and you're gonna have to leave the room.
We're doing this.
Steve.
What's this all about then? What's it?
The
Well,
payment
it's mentioned earlier on.
What happens if one of those councillors disagrees with something else that's on there?
It's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, as you can see, we've got the clerk's salary and we've got costs of back pay for the previous clerk, subscriptions to bulk, repairs to the football club, which I think is the door. Cleaning the village hall, purchase of maps to draw the plans up for the clubhouse and the cricket pavilion. Just gone too far down.
So what's on there, isn't
No,
it?
Yeah.
maybe not this one.
Yeah. Reimbursement for clerks, new clerks' phone. Emptying the litter bins as usual, landscape maintenance as usual. Entry for the best kept village, more maps needed for the clubhouse and the application fee for the clubhouse. Payment for the new seesaw thing at the playground in the fish pond. A supply of diesel for the mower. The weed killing around the village, and then reimbursement of the expenses for the coronation, which she has put it in. And then the usual direct debits.
Yeah, it's fine. No problem.
And you've got all agreed? Yeah, okay. Approved.
Okay.
Are you on the finance committee?
No. It can be.
Okay.
Just for it.
Right.
So what would have happened if another one went down? There's only 2 people
No,
there.
no, we'd have to,
Come on, you're clerk.
well, let's take yours off and put it on next time.
One
So you can
person.
say.
What would have happened if one person couldn't be paid?
Right. Right, so that's the payment schedule. Right, moving on to correspondence received. A parishioner has written to suggest that a further iteration of the neighbourhood plan is required, given that the current plan is now over 2 years old. Now,
they're going to write it,
sorry?
they're going to write it.
Let me sort of try and get this right. A neighbourhood plan has got a life of much more than 2 years. Our plan is co-terminal with Plan MK, which is 2031. So it's, it's basically a 10-year plan. The reference to 2 years is that if the local planning authority fails to maintain a 5-year housing supply, or a certain level of completions, housing completions, which I can't remember what the percentage is offhand, then the plan is regarded as, it's an odd phrase, out of date. And if it is out of date, then the only objection to a planning application is if it is not sustainable. And given that sustainability seems to be a very woolly concept, it basically means that a lot of planning applications go through, and you only have to look at what happened to Hanslope when Milton Keynes did not have a 5-year housing land supply,
And they never have
and they didn't have a neighbourhood plan. If you have a neighbourhood plan for 2 years, that neighbourhood plan gives you the protection of whatever the neighbourhood plan says, regardless of whether there is a 5-year housing supply or not. Now, the question therefore is, when Plan MK came in, it created a huge amount of housing land. In fact, I think they were arguing about the percentage, but I think it was somewhere between 6.5 and 7 years worth of housing land being identified. So it's very, very comfortable. And despite COVID, completions were very good as well. In fact, completions last year were well ahead of target. In fact, there's a little report by Milton Keynes Council that I think we may have seen that recently that said how well they were doing. So in those terms, now I've asked, it's a pity actually that, I asked the board councillors if they could try and find out from planning what the situation was on 5-year housing land supply and completions. He has asked a question and he wrote to me today to say that despite chasing, he still hasn't had a response. Now, so in my view, if the plan is still in date, there is no need to write a new neighbourhood plan. If it starts to become a threat, then I think we probably should. Now, Hanslope, I did attend one of their meetings, their neighbourhood plan meetings at their request. I was invited to go along. And I basically said what I've just said to you. And they took a different view, which is where they wanted that protection anyway, because developers had bought up a lot of land around Hanslope and might put in unwanted planning applications. Now, it doesn't take much of a jump to say that if they're buying up land around Hanslope, by definition, they're buying up land around Castlethorpe. So the same logic should apply. I actually think that they've got a number of people who are residents, as I understand it, who stepped forward to say that they would take on the brunt of writing the neighbourhood plan. And to be honest, I think part of my attitude is because I'm somewhat jaded after what was an extremely bloody experience on the last 2 iterations of the neighbourhood plan. It was a draining process. I think that at the end of the day, in my opinion, Milton Keynes did not make reasonable decisions, but as you know, they were unchallengeable unless we spent money which was beyond what we felt would be good value to the ratepayers. So that's where it is. My recommendation would be that we don't put the effort into a neighbourhood plan at this stage. But if Chris or one of the other ward councillors comes back and says that there is a risk, then we probably should undertake it. It will be interesting to get Alison's view, because she, of course, is chair of Castlethorpe Parish Council, and she was on this call, and I think is more swayed towards the development of the neighbourhood plan than I am. But there you go. So there's a difference of opinion there. So I'll leave it open, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything you've done, and I appreciate why you're worn out by that. And I've kind of been with you, but not as influential in the last couple. And it has been wearing. There have been a lot of problems and a lot of grief. But I really don't think we should close our eyes to it. And I think there is a resident that is prepared to take lead on pushing that neighbour plan forward. And I think we should watch this space for the moment, wait to get this feedback back, and review a little bit. Like, I don't think we should close the door on it here.
No. As the other member of the people that drew it up as well, I agree with that. It has been known for a long time, ever since Plan MK 2050 came out first, that developers have been buying options on basically all the land between Hanslope and Newport Pagnell, basically, including land close to Castlethorpe.
Actually, that does remind me of another point that I perhaps ought to mention. At the last Parishes Forum, it came out that Milton Keynes Council had held a conference for effectively 2050 Futures MK, the shape of Milton Keynes, to which they invited a number of developers. Again, there were 3 parish councillors who were invited, one of whom was a ward councillor, Sue Smith, one of whom was Alan Francis from New Bradwell, who was actually there with another hat on, and one of them was Terry Baines as vice chair of MALC. But A, Terry Baines has left, and B, I'm the vice chair of MALC. And I wasn't invited. Anyway, I was joined by a fairly large number of other parish councillors on the parish forum call, did raise quite a stink about this, and we said we do want a conference of some form for the parishes. And I can tell you, with my MALC hat on, that there will be a conference on the 22nd of November, I think the date is, at the Milton Keynes Christian Centre. I had a meeting just last week where Sue Smith, Kay Pettit, Brian Barton and me were looking at dates and content, and people have now taken off actions to get speakers. Neil Homer will be one of the speakers, for example. Anyway, so that will again inform us, or help to inform us, about the shape that Milton Keynes is thinking of for 2050, because those developers had actually bought the land quite a while ago, or taken the options quite a while ago. So yes,
As a parting shot, I'd just like to find out how difficult and how complex it would be to reiterate for example, what constitutes material change at this point in time. So I think I would like to know what is involved in actually the next iteration neighbourhood plan, and at least understand how much work it will be before we say, you know. And I think there are probably enough residents about, and I'll take part in that, to actually do this as a community-led thing.
I think it would be useful to find out from Milton Keynes Planning Department what they would consider to be a substantial amendment.
Well, yes, I mean, they don't decide actually, it's the examiner who decides, and there are 3 classes change or modification to a neighbourhood plan. The bottom one is effectively just cosmetic, and that would not give the 2 years protection. But the next 2, which are material changes, one of which is a material change which does not change the nature of the plan, would give the protection but would not require a referendum. And then the third one is a material change which does change the nature of the plan, which requires a referendum, but it's actually the examiner who makes that decision. So there are some things that, you know, we could potentially do. You'd have to think about it. I mean, again, you know, I mean, I will say now, after our experience with Carrington Grove, I'd be very, very reluctant to put more land forward, for example, which is a classic material change, which would, you know,
I mean, there was a suggestion that the Carrington Grove policy that was introduced as part of the last neighbourhood plan that was never actually taken up. The removal of that might be a material change because they've got a policy in there that they're not meeting. So the removal of a policy, a non-effective policy, could constitute a material change.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the point is, there's a fair amount of work involved in this. And if it's necessary, of course, you know, I'd you know, come forward and play my part. But because the other thing is that Plan MK itself is due for renewal, I think in 2025. And when that comes in, it would effectively outdate plans. It would be the newer document, and as the newer planning policy document, it would then take precedence over any neighbourhood plan which then existed. So, you know, there is an argument for saying you really ought to wait until Plan MK is changed, because you'll probably have to modify your neighbourhood plan at that point anyhow. But I'm happy for us to find out. I've asked the ward councillors to see what our risk is. We can, you know, we could ask David Blandown what a material change is, and we'll get a very enlightening answer, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will.
All right. A member of the public has brought to attention that the footpath between Lodge Farm Court and the sports ground is becoming overgrown.
Unfortunately, the resident that used to keep the footpath clear has been unable to do so this year, and it is overgrown. So it does need some attention. It does.
Martin Levy usually does it in the autumn, doesn't he? But you can't really touch it at the moment. Only up depending what hedgerow it is.
You can clear it at the ground level, but it's a hedgerow you can't touch. It's not the hedgerow that's going over. It's actually at the ground. I walked up there the other day. It's the ground level from the fence.
You come down the steps.
You come down the steps and Lodge Farm Court, take a left,
and it's just round the corner.
Yeah, and it's stuff that's growing under the fence.
Growing at the bottom.
Fence.
Yeah.
The one at the top, it usually gets quite overgrown.
That's what that's
turn right at the top. That's usually quite bad.
I mean,
It's only branches.
Yeah,
it's
you
not-
can do it. With
Yeah.
Well, what is the action on?
I think the action is either to spend kind of emergency plus delegated money to get some of the electrical to clear it. Or to put a resolution on the next agenda to actually get it
Well,
done.
if you're going to do it, you might as well do it now.
Yeah.
If we have Michael Lever down to have a look at the seats, be with me and Dave,
Yeah.
I can go up there with Michael Lever to give us the quote just to do that bit of trimming.
Yeah, who did that bit of trimming last time? Was that Michael Lever?
No, it's Dave Royce to give it.
Oh, right.
And David Hall used to do it just round the corner.
That's not doing
His property. So
I emailed him today and he said he'd been unable to do it.
Okay. Right.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it does go on to say that the path leading up the first field, which I think includes, is not in a good state either. So we need a local route.
well, that's up to us to keep it the path open.
That's at the farm.
Oh,
That's up to the farm.
Sorry,
It's not-
are you talking about on the path? I think Ian's talking about the path at the side of the football pitch. that
No,
goes
when
at the
you're
side.
going up the football pitch and turn right at the top.
Yeah.
And then you've got the gate going
Yeah.
up the field going to
Yeah.
the south side. And that bit of pathway there is public footpath.
Correct.
And that search could be kept in good state to be used as a public footpath.
I don't think that's ever been being kept in a really good state. It's always had sort of like quite big ruts in it. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a
Well, no.
pathway. It's just walking along the headlands,
Yeah,
isn't
but it's
it?
no good to the cycle track
Yeah.
that's supposed to be used
Yeah.
down the bottom of, looking at the bottom of the water road, is it?
And there are standards that should
Yeah.
be kept to, but I mean, these aren't my words.
No, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
But is the footpath that's on our ground?
Yeah, that's quite reasonable.
That's
So
quite
we
reasonable.
have, we really want to stretch through
Yeah,
there.
I know we did a big effort, but I don't know whether it's grown up since then.
No, the surface it's just the kind of shrubs that are overgrown.
Yeah.
But the footpath going up towards Sandside
Yeah.
is uneven, but like Kay said, from the times I've walked it, it's always been like that.
Okay.
There's never been a clear.
All right.
I could have a look at it if you want.
That's
The
right.
styles are good that way.
They're not on my dog, right?
Let's move on. 19.3 is an email's been received about a potentially dangerous horse chestnut tree. In my view, this was on private land, and I did recommend that Jackie responded that way to the, you did,
Is that to Mr. Knight's house?
I believe so, yeah.
Corner of South and North Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
Killer
It
Conkers,
does get quite slippery, I have to say.
They come along, they come along last autumn, previous autumn, they come round with a special machine to cut it so the double deckers can go underneath it.
Yeah, no, I think
And that's-
he's actually talking about the South Street bit of it.
Yes.
And I mean, years and years ago, I used to have to park my car under that, and it used to get absolutely filthy.
Yeah, it's like, that's a lot better.
It's the lines, yeah, the lines you could do it.
As I said to you at the time we met, is when the original man lived in it. I used to go and cut it every 2 years for him and go, well, I used to get some people to come and I used to go down and try and pick all the rubbish up.
Yeah.
The residents concerned
Anyway.
about conkers falling, as in.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, they've got a doctor in the country.
Can we move on from that?
Yeah.
They've been advised. Is there any other business for noting or including on the future agenda?
Yes, there was email came into the contact Castlethorpe PC address. Unfortunately, it was too late to put on the agenda. It's from the local public protection officer of Camera, and basically he sets out what they think would happen to the Carrington, and they want to know whether the parish council has any views on the pub and its future. Do you want me to read it out?
Honestly, I mean, this is such a long discussion we can get into if we start talking about it. I mean,
We have actually engaged Camera in conversation about the pub about how many years ago? 8, something like that.
Something like that.
And we tried to make it an asset of.
community asset.
Can't we just forward this on to this new group that's got together?
I could do that.
Yeah,
Peter Clark.
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But I mean, I think he's looking more broadly at the development of the building rather than that reopening its.
No, no, it's basically, they say the planning applications made for a change of use to housing, for example. Camera would oppose this in favour of sale at an appropriate price to potential publicans. But we'd like to work with the parish council and the local people on this.
Well, I think perhaps if we could have this on the next agenda, which is only, is it 3 weeks or 4 weeks away, whatever it is. And perhaps you could, would you be prepared to draft a kind of response
Yeah,
to consider?
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send it to Peter Clark as well.
Yeah.
The accessibility fund for the pavements, I'd quite like that on the next.
Yeah.
agenda.
You prepared to?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, you know, do we have to? I mean, we probably need to make the application. But I mean, do you want to just see if that's just drive it forward to the point where a parish council can make a decision?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just bring that to us.
I just think it, you know, if there is a fund that is there for accessibility. Okay.
That's absolutely right. This Kevin is the bit of footpath, footway outside those houses that you referred to.
South Street, the one outside McDermott's. Do you know where the wall comes round towards Neil Walker's? That's really bad as well. And very narrow. Again,
The grass.
Yeah, the grass has gone over it, so it's not really accessible to people with any.
You know, that actually really is just a landscaping issue. It ought to be trimmed back to the edge of the tarmac. I think all that's happening there is the grass is overgrowing the tarmac.
It's not just that though, it's the actual tree roots and actually.
The
Goes like that with cracks in it. And I think Ian, you mentioned that when you were driving your motorcycle around.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Or then go down the road now because you can't get along the top of North Street there.
Yeah.
Because that chap would keep parking his motors on the side of the road. Got no chance on the path, got no chance. I went around South Street the other week, couldn't get down there.
Okay, go on with.
And then there's the community infrastructure fund to go on the next agenda if we want to start thinking about.
Right, that's a very good point. So the community infrastructure fund, which is where we, for example, have got the SIDS. Well, then to ask what happened with SIDS. It's for improvements. We've done improvements to the village hall in the past. We've done all sorts of improvements around the village using this fund. It's 50% funding. So it's a matter of thinking about potential projects that we would want to bring forward. I think they tend to be quite good at funding stuff round about the sort of £5,000 to £10,000 mark. You know, so you know, because I think the total fund's about 100,000 or so. It's not a lot. So when you spread that over 48 parish councils, then you don't get a huge amount. But you can do, you know, moderate-sized projects that would be quite useful. But they've only just made the decision that for this year about a month or so ago. So you wouldn't get the money until. Oh, I'm not sure I can work out which year it is even.
That's the next financial year.
It's probably 2025, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's 23, 24, we need to spend the SID money, and 24, 25, we need to spend
The next one,
any
yeah.
money we
Yeah,
get.
and probably at the beginning of 2025, yeah.
Could it be something on the splits?
Well, can be, but rather than
Could it be-
discuss it, if
could
we
it-
can bring it to the next meeting, Jack is just pointing out that'll be on the agenda to remind everyone to talk. Yeah.
I have mentioned it before, 29 Bullington End Road, the gentleman now has made his nice big car park, he's taken the fence down that goes up to the allotment, he's took all the hedge out, the fence out and everything. People have said to me, somebody said to me today, it's going to be a turning circle out through the allotment driveway. Surely he should not have been allowed to do that. I have mentioned it's taken the concrete paddock that was used for parking. He's taken the concrete path up to anybody's going to deliver a newspaper or a post or anything. He's taken the trees out. It's unbelievable. I think we should be right to the council asking about it.
Okay.
Where is this?
This is now.
Well, you've got Bullington Road, you've got the two blocks. Council houses, haven't you? 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Then you go up to the allotment. The one before you go up the allotment, it's taken the whole garden down.
So the end house,
End
on
house.
the left hand side.
You can't miss it.
Now,
Round there.
let me just be clear, is this a Milton Keynes housing?
Yes,
Right, okay,
gentlemen's come out, I'm going to do this, I'm
all
going to do that.
okay, let's,
People complain, so seriously, yeah.
okay. Jackie, you and I can perhaps discuss what we're going to do about that. Okay, we probably do need to write to Milton Keynes housing. Trouble is, I hardly know anyone in Milton Keynes housing because housing is somewhere where we don't normally deal with as a parish council. Right. Next meeting is the 5th of June. Annual parish meeting is next Monday, 7 o'clock. Remind everyone on that. I'm now going to close part 1 of the meeting.
Next
Just
Monday
got
then,
a short.
you've got those 3 people.
20 seconds.
So we've just got a short item in part 2. So if anyone is persevering, thank you very much, and we'll see you either next week or on the 5th.